Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in because I want you to picture this scene. We are dropping right into a super tense, incredibly dramatic encounter at a high-end restaurant. You know the vibe. The atmosphere is buzzing, the lights are low, and across the room, just past all the clinking glasses, a woman named Vera locks eyes with her past. She's actually there celebrating her recent engagement to her deeply supportive fiancé Andrey, but out of nowhere, she runs right into her ex-husband Max. And guys, this isn't just any ex. This is the man who literally spent years systematically dismantling her life.
Which brings us to our first section, the restaurant confrontation. Just notice the stark contrast in their dynamic here. Max literally corners her in the hallway. He's still arrogant, totally trying to play the puppet master. He looks at her amazing new life and sneers, "You found a rich sucker," totally trying to drag her back down to this subservient role. But Vera, she doesn't even flinch. She looks him dead in the eye and simply says, "I found myself." I mean, wow. Talk about a mic drop moment, right? It's just such a powerful response from a woman who is completely in control of her destiny.
But this whole interaction highlights a massive contrast, and it really leads us to ask, how did we even get here? How on earth did a brilliant, academically gifted linguist end up trapped in an abusive marriage in the first place? And honestly, more importantly, what kind of grueling psychological journey did she have to take to escape it? Because to really understand that absolute triumph at the restaurant, we've got to look at the trap itself. Part 2, the perfect target. So, to understand the trap, we really have to look back. Because toxic control rarely starts with a locked door, it almost always starts with an open vulnerability. See, being raised in poverty by a struggling single mother and completely without a father figure, Vera lacked a solid blueprint for navigating romantic relationships. And though she was this academically gifted linguist, she was also terribly socially anxious and deeply, deeply desired what she called a stone wall of protection. Well, Max absolutely smelled that vulnerability. He totally exploited her lack of relationship experience by just love-bombing her. He swept in with this overwhelming confidence and presented himself as the exact protector she had always craved.
Section 3, building the gilded cage.
But man, that protection so quickly became an illusion. Toxic control rarely happens overnight. It's usually this insidious, creeping pace. Like year 1, they get married, and he just subtly starts isolating her. Then year 2 brings twins, a boy and a girl. Max acts thrilled, of course, but the massive burden of childcare falls entirely on Vera. By year 3, he literally forces her to quit her beloved job at a travel agency. And then by year 4, she is in total domestic confinement, completely cut off from her income, her colleagues, and her passions. The cage had basically clicked shut. Let's actually break down the specific mechanics Max used to enforce this, because it's so calculated. Step 1, he demanded absolute perfection in domestic duties. This was just to make her feel like she was always falling short, no matter what. Step 2, and guys, this is a massive red flag, he flat out refused outside help. When Vera suggested hiring a nanny just so she could work, Max totally vetoed it, making sure she remained the sole caregiver. Step 3 was forcing her to quit her career entirely. And finally, step 4, the intentional erosion of her self-esteem. He stopped calling her his dream girl and started calling her a clucking hen. He mocked her intelligence, basically brainwashing her into thinking she was stupid and utterly dependent on him. Now, what our source is describing here actually has an official psychological term. It's called coercive control. This is a strategic pattern of behavior designed to exploit, control, create dependency, and completely isolate a partner by restricting their freedom and financial independence. So Max wasn't just being a bad husband, right? He was systematically executing profound financial and emotional abuse, slowly turning a really bright, independent woman into a captive. Section 4, the catalyst for change. Now, every cage has a breaking point, and for Vera, that catalyst was driven by a really devastating personal tragedy. Her mother, who was her absolute rock and honestly her only real emotional support system, suddenly passed away from a hidden battle with cancer. Vera was just totally blindsided, and in the agonizing aftermath of this huge loss, the true reality of her marriage was fully laid bare. She looked around and realized she was entirely alone, trapped in an apartment with this cold, incredibly unsupportive phantom of a husband. And the events that followed, those were the final straws. While Vera was literally drowning in grief, Max showed zero emotional support. None. And even worse, she accidentally discovers that Max has been carrying on this long-term affair with a woman named Alina. When Vera finally gathers the courage to confront him about it, Max doesn't even apologize. No way. Instead, he doubles down on the manipulation.
He looks at her and says, "You are a zero without me." He actually mocks her, threatening that if she leaves, she and the kids will quite literally die of hunger, simply because she hasn't worked in 6 years. But you know what? Instead of breaking her, that horrific threat finally sparked something. It gave her the terrifying courage to pack her bags and walk right out the door. Which brings us to Section 5, Surviving Rock Bottom. Escaping the cage was genuinely just the beginning, because the reality of the outside world was pretty brutal. I mean, imagine starting with absolute zero. That was the terrifying reality Vera faced when she moved her twins into her late mother's incredibly cramped apartment. Zero income, 0 days worked in her professional field over the last 6 years, and 0 reliable child support, mostly because Max maliciously hid his official income just so he could pay her absolute pennies. She was literally starting from scratch. What follows is what we like to call the crucible of rebuilding. Vera literally had to pawn all the heavy gold jewelry Max had bought her, selling it at a massive loss just to feed her kids. She took this grueling job at a vegetable market, but actually got fired because she flat out refused to cheat the customers. Then she took a physically exhausting job scrubbing floors as a janitor in apartment stairwells, only to get let go when new management took over. Eventually, she found a super modest job as a clerk in a tiny neighborhood shop. Now, it would be so easy to look at this and just see failure, but that is definitely not what this is. This intense struggle, scrubbing floors, selling vegetables, this was the painful but absolutely necessary crucible where she rebuilt her grip. And that crucible was the foundation for rebuilding her autonomy. Because while Max sat in his luxury apartment, just smugly waiting for Vera to come crawling back on her hands and knees, Vera was secretly regaining her power. Every single floor she scrubbed, every long shift she worked was undeniable proof that she didn't need his cage to survive. She was poor, for sure, but for the very first time in years, she was finally free. Section 6. Finding True Independence. So just when she had proven she could survive the absolute worst, life offered her this beautiful, serendipitous rescue. One day, her old university professor, Peter Sergeyevich, accidentally walks into the tiny neighborhood shop where she's clerking, and he recognizes her instantly. Not as some broken housewife, but as literally the most brilliant linguistic student he ever taught. Appalled by her current situation, he immediately recommends her for a high-level translation job at his nephew's international real estate firm called Andrey. Vera goes in, she absolutely aces the rigorous interview based purely on her restored merit, and just like that, she gets her career back. She's back in her element, earning a fantastic salary, and finally being respected for her mind. And it's right there at Andrey that she meets Andrey. He's the firm's founder, and he goes from being her boss to her equal partner and eventually her fiancé. The contrast between her past and present is just staggering. Life with Max was this artificial, wealthy existence where she was completely voiceless, financially isolated, and constantly belittled. But life with Andrey? She's earning her own money, she's a highly respected professional, she's intellectually stimulated. Andrey actually values her intelligence instead of feeling threatened by it. It's a genuine equal partnership. Which brings this incredible journey completely full circle, right back to that climax at the restaurant. I mean, just imagine Max's perspective for a second. He looks across the room and sees the exact woman he threw away, the woman he swore would absolutely starve without him. But she isn't starving. She is radiant, she's wildly successful, and she's standing beside a man who actually respects her. So Max tries his old tricks, right? He tries to insult her in the hallway to somehow reassert his dominance, and he just fails completely. He literally has 0 power over her anymore. So, as we wrap up our analysis of Vera's incredible heroine's journey today, I want to leave you with a really provocative question to chew on. What is the true cost of independence? What are you personally willing to endure to reclaim your own narrative? Because the ultimate takeaway from Vera's story is this. You can lose everything, your money, your home, your supposed security, but as long as you don't lose yourself, you can always rebuild. Vera walked out of that marriage with absolutely 0, but because she finally had herself back, she built an empire of her own. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you all next time.